Hello and welcome. My name is Andrew. Drip, 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 Screech, Drop is a scary story about a newlywed couple. Cody and Ginny were on their honeymoon. They used to go on annual camping trips to the Sierra Nevadas. But for their honeymoon, they decided to go on a long road trip in their camper van, visiting many places. Usually they would stop at camping grounds for the night. But Cody were eager to get to the nearest town. The couple was driving listening to the radio and got distracted. After a while, Cody noticed he took a wrong turn. Their van began to run out of gas. They were a few miles away from the nearest gas station when the van eventually stopped. As the couple sat in the van, contemplating what to do, the radio spokesman announced that there was a murderer on the loose in their county. It was not safe to walk around outside. Cody did not want to wait until morning. So he told Ginny that he was going to walk to the nearest gas station to get gas. He said he would be back within an hour or so. As much as Ginny tried to plead to him not to go, he refused to listen to her warnings. Once Cody got out of the van and began to walk, Ginny locked the doors. More than a couple hours went by, and the Cody had not returned. Ginny grew more scared by the minute. As the minutes ticked away, she began getting tired and suddenly awoke from knocking at the door. Terrified, she waited to hear Cody's voice, but nothing. All night, she heard footsteps around the van. Then to hear a dripping sound on the roof of the van. Drip, 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 screech, drip, drip. She had no idea what could be making the noise, but she was too frightened to get out of the van and look. The dripping continued. Drip, 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 screeched. Growing more and more scared, Ginny curled up on the floor under a blanket in order to make it look like no one was in the van. Another hour went by as she constantly heard the sound drip, drip, drip. As uncomfortable as it was scrunched up and as scared as she was, she eventually fell asleep. When she woke up in the morning, she could barely see out the van. It appeared to be covered in mud. She could make out the vague flashing of red and blue lights outside. Realizing it was the police, she opened up the van. One of the officers grabbed her the second she stepped out and covered her head with his jacket, and he put her into the cop car and immediately drove away. He told the girl not to look back as they were driving away from the camper van. She couldn't understand what was happening and why she was being driven away or where her husband was. She couldn't help but to look back. What she saw took the color right from her skin. The van was not covered in mud after all. It was covered in blood. Hanging from the tree above the van was her husband with his feet cut off and hanging upside down. The blood was slowly dripping onto the van. The screeching was his wedding ring. Drip, drip, drip sound of blood.
Hello, my name is Alex. The deepest fear. You've been dating your girlfriend almost 2 years now. You often stay late over the summer and on weekends. You arrive home long after the rest of your family go to sleep. Every night you drive the deserted rural roads back home from a pleasant evening. At her house you become overwhelmed by fears that you will arrive home to find your family dead in their beds. Each night you peek into your sister's room and see she's fine and hear the reassuring rumble of your father's snore as you pass your parents' door. You chuckle at your silly worries and drift off to sleep. Finally, one morning you decide to tell your mother about your late night. Fears amidst some jovial conversation for a nice laugh. As you tell her, a concerned look comes over her face. She sweeps the hair away from her face as she says, "Oh honey, you know we were all shot almost 2 years ago." You scream as you see the gaping bullet hole in her forehead.
Hello, my name is Brandon. The Camper Van is a funny, scary story about two friends who spend the night camping in the woods and get the feeling they are not alone. Let me tell you about the scariest moment of my life. It happened when I was a teenager. My friend and I wanted to go camping in the woods. We decided to sleep in an abandoned camper van we found deep in the forest. So one weekend, we hiked out to where the camper van was. By the time we reached it, it was dark. We opened the rusty door and climbed inside. It was a miserable night. The rain was lashing down outside. The wind was shrieking and the camper van was creaking and groaning. We even thought we heard something or someone walking around outside. Probably just an animal, we reassured ourselves. Both of us were scared and nervous, but we tried to act brave and pretend we were having a good time. In the middle of the night, I was awoken by a strange noise. I sat up in bed and that was when I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. In the small window at the other end of the camper van, I saw a shadow moving. At first, I thought it just the shadow of a tree, but then I realized it was human. It looked like a man's silhouette. It seemed as if he was standing outside the window, staring in at us. I reached out to grab my friend and wake him up, but the man outside moved. I froze. My heart was beating fast and I was sweating. I couldn't take my eyes off the shadowy man outside. I hissed at my friend to wake up. "What's wrong?" He mumbled. "Someone's watching us," I hissed. "Do you see him?" "I see him," he whispered. For the next 10 minutes, we just sat there, staring at the man's shadow, hardly daring to move. The man stood there motionless and stared back at us. The longer we stared at him, the more terrified we became. Eventually, my friend decided to shine the flashlight in his eyes. We thought maybe that would scare him away. As soon as he switched on the flashlight, we realized our horrible mistake. There was no window on the other side of the camper. It was a mirror. For the past 10 minutes, we had been staring at my reflection.